Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. It has been more than a week since the last votes were cast in the 2018 midterms. That was last Tuesday. But still, several big races remain unresolved at this hour. In the state of Florida, recount is ongoing. We're going to have more on that in just a minute. It's a pretty weird story. But perhaps strangest of all is what is happening right now in Georgia. The race for governor of Georgia was tight for months. You probably followed it. But it finished in the end pretty much exactly where the polls predicted it would finish. The Republican, Brian Kemp, defeated the Democrat, Stacey Abrams, by about 1.5 percentage points. In a big state, that is an awful lot of votes. For reasons she hasn't really explained, though, Stacey Abrams has refused to accept those results. Her allies are now claiming the election was stolen.
If Stacey Abrams doesn't win in Georgia, they stole it. It's clear. It's clear.
Stacey Abrams' election is being stolen from her using what I think are insidious measures to disenfranchise certain groups of people.
I know Stacey well. She was one of my really strong surrogates in the campaign. If she'd had a fair election, she already would have won.
Election fraud, that's what they're saying. And by the way, is there anyone more fraudulent than Cory Booker? Think about that. But back to election fraud. It's a serious charge, and it's telling that nobody making that charge has provided any evidence that it actually happened. No detail at all. Most remarkable of all, though, is that Hillary Clinton is one of the voices in this chorus. We keep track, and we remember Hillary's view just 2 years ago. Here's what she thought of losing candidates who claim the election is rigged.
That's horrifying. You know, every time Donald thinks things are not going in his direction, he claims whatever it is rigged against him. That is not the way our democracy works. We've been around for 240 years. We've had free and fair elections. We've accepted the outcomes when we may not have liked them. He is denigrating. He's talking down our democracy. And I, for one, am appalled.
She's appalled. You got to accept the outcomes you don't like. But it turns out that accepting outcomes you don't like is something only Republicans are required to do. Richard Nixon had an entire presidential election stolen from him by JFK in 1960. Liberals applauded when Nixon chose not to contest that election. But Democrats do not apply the same standard to themselves. When Democrats lose, there is always a reason that has nothing to do with alienating voters or getting fewer votes. It's Putin rigged the machines. The Macedonians hacked Facebook. Roger Stone sent unapproved tweets. Or the perennial favorite, you're racist. All of you who didn't vote for us, you're racist. You're immoral bigots. And of course, that's what we're hearing once again now. By the way, it's a lie. America is not a racist country. It's a kind and decent country. But the left hopes that by calling you enough names, they'll bully you into giving them more power. They always try that, and sometimes it works. It might work this time. The question is, what's the cost to the country? Peter Kirsanow is a U.S. Civil Rights Commissioner, a frequent guest on the show. He joins us again tonight. Peter, thanks a lot for coming on. So first, as a factual question, this is someone who's a rigorous thinker, I think, and has been following this. Is there evidence, real evidence, that Stacey Abrams has had this election stolen from her?
There's absolutely no evidence that I think anyone's adduced. But what we're seeing here, I think, is a test run for the 2020 election. It's not merely a test run. They're doing this in this election. They've done it in previous elections, although I will say that I don't think in my nearly 2 decades on the Civil Rights Commission I've seen the intensity of the type of overt and naked racial appeals and identity politics appeals that I've seen in this election cycle. And perhaps you could go back even before the 1957 Civil Rights Act to the Deep South, Orville Faubus, Lester Maddox, George Wallace. And there's a reason for it. There are several reasons for it. But one is it works. And they're trying to delegitimize the election in advance, but it's a test run because think about how difficult it is for your average leftist to try to convince a voter that they should accept their unworkable or somehow nutty, sometimes nutty politics or policy prescriptions versus simply saying that person's a racist, that person's a bad person, all the right-thinking people know that person's a racist, and it has an ancillary effect. That is, it keeps blacks on the Democratic reservation. This is existential for the Democratic Party. They need at least 90% of the black vote just to be competitive, and even 90% plus of the black vote. And so they engage in these types of maneuvers and rhetoric on a regular basis. But the additional effect that's helpful is it makes, and I think you alluded to this, there is a certain subset of white voters who they also want to align themselves with the right-thinking folks, and they don't want to be aligned with those that all the right-thinking people say are racist or despicable. So to feel good about themselves, they'll vote in the prescribed manner.
Right. And you're absolutely right that it works, and they've been doing it an awfully long time. But I think in almost 30 years of covering elections, I've never seen it at this volume. You just a second ago said there are a couple of reasons for it. The first is it works, and I agree with you. What are the other reasons? Why is it accelerated now, do you think?
Because, I think some of it is because the policy think about how far the Democrats have gone to the left. And it's difficult to get more than a certain percentage of voters to align themselves with those kinds of policy prescriptions. It's a lot easier to comprehend an appeal based on identity politics. If, for example, what's her name, Alexandria Cortez were to go out and try to convince a voter how it is that extending Medicare to all or free college tuition is not going to bankrupt the economy, even most obtuse voter is going to laugh her off of the stage. Right. It's a lot easier to say, vote for me because I am of whatever identity it may be, and make an appeal on that basis and have media acolytes continue to echo that on a regular basis. A significant portion of this is because of Donald Trump and the continued attempts to paint Donald Trump and anyone who supports him as a racist. In some respects, it has been successful. I think it's backfired in other respects. But you're seeing something that they're going to test out big time in 2020.
Yeah. No, I think that's really smart. Thank you for making sense of that. Peter Kirsanow, one of our favorite guests. Well, Democrats have to choose a new Speaker of the House in just a couple of weeks. No choice. They got to do it. Nancy Pelosi brought the party to its biggest win in a long time. They've been out of power 8 years. Now they have power back. But a lot of Democrats say they don't want her as the Speaker. At least one left-leaning cable host is confused by this.
The party picks up more seats in the House than at any time since the immediate aftermath of Watergate. And the party responds to that by maybe turfing out their leader in the House. We just had the biggest gain since Watergate. Pelosi must pay. Yeah, but Schumer, you guys are good. I mean, nothing against or for Schumer or against or for Pelosi, but how does that math work?
Well, that's not a crazy point, is it? Tammy Bruce is a radio host, president of Independent Women's Voice. She joins us tonight. So, Tammy, it seems to me like the Democratic Party may have reached the identity politics cul-de-sac, where it's racist to keep Nancy Pelosi because she doesn't look like the emerging Democratic Party, but it would be sexist to kick her out because she is the highest-ranking woman. So what do they do?
That's right, and also ageist, obviously. I mean, if you want to go for anybody there, I think she's look, I value experience. Maddow is partly correct, but at the same time, I thought Donald Trump was responsible for their success. I don't think Nancy Pelosi, according to the Democrats, had anything to do. I want Donald Trump to be the Speaker of the House. If it's about who, So come on, let's be honest. A bottom line is that there is a strata there in the Democratic Party that understands that the establishment is out of touch. That this is the same kind of dynamic that they've been dealing with for years, that they have no answers and no prescription policies. And the people that said that when they were running that they were going to vote against her, it's because they were also running not as Democrats. They were pretending they weren't Democrats. They were assuring everyone we're not going to vote for the same old dynamic and the status quo. And that's what Nancy Pelosi is. And so, look, they understand the party's got to change. And yet Nancy's also the only one who raises money. So on the other hand, all these socialists also want more money, and Nancy's the one to get it to them. So look, she is the best one for it. If you're right, no matter what they do, they're racist, sexist, ageist, and I don't know if we can fit homophobe in there somewhere. I'm sure that's a factor. But look, I've got my popcorn. I'm watching this, and maybe they should make Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez the speaker.
I'm rooting for her, but it's just
I would
interesting.
love that.
I mean, it's like one of the deep truths of life that you never suffer as much as when you get what you think you want. So they took the House back. They took the House back, and all of a sudden they have to deal with each other. That's correct. The ultimate nightmare, isn't it?
Well, it's the Frankenstein monster, right? They've created this. They're Dr. Frankenstein. They thought they had this great idea, and then the lightning struck, and they've got it. The monster woke up. and then suddenly the monster's chasing you around your office, and they're not quite sure. You know, it's a friend, and maybe not your friend. But see, this
maybe not
your friend. But for those of us, of course, who care about the country, we see this as the charade that it is. And while they are, of course, my first book was about the racism, sexism, and homophobia on the left. We are going to hear about that for the next 2 years, as your first guest noted. This is the test run. This is about demonizing people. There will be no ideas, and the Republicans had better be ready to be able to counter that narrative and stand up for the American people, led by the approach and the action of the president. We've got 2 years to get it right, and we've got to start right away.
You better toughen up a little bit. I agree with that. Yeah. Tammy Bruce, thanks a lot. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Well, there's another Florida recount. You know that. It's been going on for a week. It's in progress tonight. The Senate race between Rick Scott, the Republican, Bill Nelson, the Democrat, is still ongoing. Florida's Secretary of State has ordered a manual recount. Craig Patrick is the political editor and chief investigator at Fox 13 in Tampa Bay. He's been on this for us since the beginning. He joins us once again tonight. Craig, what is going on?
We have weird news in Florida. By the way, you also have a disputed race until now in the race for governor. But while Andrew Gillum gained on Ron DeSantis, he gained but one single vote net. With that, that one is over, though Gillum has not reconceded. You're going to have Ron DeSantis now moving into the governor's mansion. In the race for Senate, yes, there is now this hand recount because they are close enough to trigger it, which takes us into next week. That's the good news for Bill Nelson. The bad news for Bill Nelson is that he gained absolutely nothing from the machine recount that concluded today. In fact, he lost net votes to Rick Scott. Rick Scott ran up his lead through the first phase of the recount, which leaves Nelson in a position of being the political equivalent of Bruce Willis from Sixth Sense, and that his career is over. He just does not know it yet, and he is playing that out. And you have more blunders in Southeast Florida counties, the Democratic strongholds. You have Palm Beach County. There, the bad news is that their machines continued to sputter and fail and melt down. And Palm Beach County fell flat on its face and was unable to complete the recount, meaning they just go back to their original results. If there's any good news there in Palm Beach County, it's that they're not Broward County to the south. And the good news, Tucker, in Broward County is that Brenda Snipes, after all the blunders, said she finally did it today. She finally did something right, that they, after all the hand-wringing, were able to meet the deadline to complete their recount. She said they did it with minutes to spare, and as she celebrated, the bad news is she forgot they had to transmit it to the state, and then they fumbled around with the computer, couldn't figure out how to do it in time. They were 2 minutes late, and as per the law in Florida, the recount results in Broward County got rejected by the state.
You have conclusively convinced me not to run for office in Broward County. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you.
I'm not going to attempt it. Well, first the press told you that the migrant caravan wasn't even real, it didn't even exist, and then they told you it was so far away it would basically never get here. Reality has intruded on that storyline, and we have an update from Tijuana, Mexico, our southern border, after the break.
Is a bunch of poor refugees 1,000 miles away. This group of folks, we don't even...
Taxpayers are subsidizing Jeff Bezos, and Democratic politicians are applauding. What exactly is going on? We've got details after the break. Facebook and the rest, and they'll punish you if you get in their way, as you know. Latest example, New York and Northern Virginia, two of the bluest parts of this country, showered promises and billions in taxpayer breaks on Jeff Bezos. He runs Amazon. In return, both those states are getting a new Amazon headquarters. It's a great deal for Bezos. Not that he needs it, he's already the richest man on planet Earth. But what about taxpayers? Eric Schiffer is a tech entrepreneur. He's CEO of the Patriarch Organization. He joins us tonight. Eric, thanks a lot for coming on.
My pleasure.
So it's just not clear to me why would New York, for example, and Virginia's in on this too, but New York paid more. Why would they need to pay $3 billion in effect in taxpayer dollars to the richest man in the world for the privilege of having the company move to New York?
Well, look, I came on because the state representative there, Cortez, made a statement and made comments basically saying that she didn't want to take Amazon's jobs in New York because perhaps it wasn't going to be unionizable, et cetera. And you agreed with Cortez in this situation.
No,
and
frankly, I didn't. I wasn't.
You did.
But hold on. No, I'm sitting right here. I can tell you what I agree with. I'm never ashamed of that. I agreed with the point that she made, and I don't often agree with her, but I thought it was a fair point. Why is New York, which is crumbling, I'm there a lot, you may be there now, the city's falling apart, it smells, the subways break, it's disgusting. Why would the city be spending $3 billion to the richest man in the world? Why wouldn't that money go to, I don't know, fixing the subways, just throwing it there, cleaning up the streets or plowing the snow or helping the people who already live there? I'm just confused.
Well, look, I typically and rarely, if ever, agree with the socialists, and certainly don't in this situation on many levels. I think what happened here, and I think we all can recall, that Amazon had an open bid across the country in which all these states could compete, and everyone did. And they did because people still want jobs across the country. They still want good-paying jobs. And frankly, I think that goes for New York and even Arlington. People in the Bronx and in Queens, they haven't had investment in jobs in about 100 years. And here comes Amazon saying, look, we're considering putting jobs in your state, in your city. And the politicians that run the cities recognize it's a competitive situation. And all cities, all major cities, have for years, for decades, competed for incentives to get jobs, as they should. Look, the tax cut passed by President Trump, which I supported, it was a big proponent. I mean, a big component of the tax cut was jobs. It caused businesses,
but you're not going to get. Hold on, you're not.
Some of the big. Let me just finish my point, please.
I'm not. Wait, hold on. I'm not against jobs.
I don't think we are.
For jobs, but it's not Amazon. But hold on, it's not Amazon doing the investing. It's the taxpayers of New York and Virginia who are investing in Jeff Bezos against their will. They're paying the richest man in the world $3 billion for the privilege of having him move to a city he didn't build. I'm just confused. Why is that a good deal for New York? I know it's a good deal for Bezos.
Well, first of all, they're not handing a check to Bezos. They're handing a check to Amazon, which is a public company that you may own shares in. Anyone that watches the show could own shares in. So this is for the public in general, and it's a public company. It's an American company and a good one.
It's not an American company. Hold on, slow down. It's not an American company. It's not an American company. It's owned by people around the world, including sovereign wealth funds of our enemies. So it's not in any sense an American company.
Tucker, come on. This was founded in the United States. It's one of the great countries.
It could only have been founded here
in the world
justice
that
system
allows for great technology.
But it's not American. Well, it's not. You think it's loyal to America?
Well, it was founded by Americans.
To help America? No.
Come on. It was founded by Americans. It certainly was. It certainly is a big contributor to tax here in America. There's no question, and jobs, significant jobs.
Okay,
and I think that my point that I was trying to make, Tucker.
Look, I don't think everything about Amazon is bad. I think they do a great job. I use Amazon. I mean, they're huge because they do a good job. But my question is, why would the Democratic Party hand the richest man in the world $3 billion a year to move to New York without asking what the taxpayers think in a city that it's literally falling apart? That's not a fair question. I think it is a fair question.
I think most states and most cities wanted Amazon to come. In fact, there were many other states that superseded that amount by significant levels. I mean, New Jersey and others.
I mean, why wouldn't? I mean, look, if you think Amazon is an American company,
part of the capital.
Really, this is not the capitalism I was promised. I don't know. I mean, so the capitalism is pull the biggest scam you can and run away laughing? I mean, that's not capitalism as far as I'm concerned.
No, actually, what I think it is, Tucker, is it's investing in jobs. The bottom line from this is, at the end, it's different than socialism like Cortez is for that you supported. The difference is that this is going to actually bring money back to the cities.
There's nothing capitalist about a monopoly.
You're talking about investment.
Some creepy billionaire suborning politicians on an inside deal that I had no say in. How's that capitalism? That's something much lower than capitalism.
It's capitalism when a city invests to get jobs and actually gets more money back from tax revenue. That makes sense. It's no different than the tax cut. We're getting more jobs. It's growing jobs. And I think that America can benefit in the right cases with investment.
All right. Okay, the helipad, that's my favorite part. Eric, thank you very much. Good to see you.
My pleasure. Thank you, Doug.
Well, unfortunately, a heartwarming story has been exposed as a hoax. It may tell us something broader about America we might like to know. Mark Stein, one of the smartest people on planet Earth, joins us after the break. Well, if you were compiling a list, you'd have to say that Al Sharpton would be one of the most, maybe the most successful race baiter in America in the past 40 years. He's certainly in the Hall of Fame. He's made a lucrative career targeting people for the color of their skin, their religion, and other factors. Democrats will tell you they are the party that is against racism. They may even call you a racist, but you know they don't mean it. Why? Because they love Al Sharpton to this day. For example, at a National Action Network event, that's Sharpton's group, just yesterday, top Democrats lined up to prostrate themselves before the altar of Al Sharpton. Not a joke. Watch this.
That's why you have leaders like the Reverend Al Sharpton, who will not give up and will not give in and will never let it go.
It seems that whenever there is a crisis, Al Sharpton and many of you are there.
Reverend Sharpton, thank you for saving America.
Whenever there's a crisis, Al Sharpton is there. Well, that's for sure. That's the understatement of the year. Thank you for saving America, they say. Did he save America before or after he incited the shooting at Freddy's Fashion Mart? I don't know. Check Google. You decide. But in any case, save that tape for the next time some liberal calls you a racist. Hilarious. Well, East Coast opinion columnists may routinely denigrate them, but Americans remain a caring, generous people. The most caring and most generous people in the world by far. And unfortunately, some people take advantage of that. A year ago, Mark D'Amico and Kate McClure raised over $400,000 on the GoFundMe site. They did it allegedly in the name of a man called Johnny Bobbitt. He's homeless. They said he had to help them out when they ran out of gas on the highway. Well, later, Bobbitt accused the couple of keeping all that money for themselves. Now, in a new twist, authorities say the entire story was a hoax from day one, and all three of them are facing charges. What can we learn from this? Author and columnist Mark Stein joins us tonight for an overview. What do you make of this, Mark?
Well, I did think this was the craziest story of the day, Tucker, until I heard your last segment. And I'm not sure actually giving 400 grand to a homeless guy isn't, on balance, marginally less insane than giving $3 billion to Jeff Bezos. So there is that. I have to say, you're right. Americans, all the polls of global charity show it. Americans are the most generous people on the planet. And I think it would be sad if charity and that generosity were just to become part of a kind of going viral on social media thing. This story smelt crummy to me a year ago when it was a feel-good story. And not to go all H.L. Mencken on you, but it's a feel-good story for me now, just because it's sort of confirmed my slightly dark view of human nature. I love everything about this story. I love the way it was an obvious setup from the start. I love the way people just sort of went bananas for it. I mean, it's not a good idea to give someone who's sleeping on an interstate ramp $400,000. He only got about 75 of it. He was spending about $2 grand a day. Meanwhile, this other couple just took off with it. They bought a BMW. They went to Vegas and blew it on the fancy suite at the Mandalay Bay or whatever it was. The homeless guy then sued them. The homeless guy has a lawyer. That's fantastic. America has as many lawyers. Statistic this is. America has as many lawyers as the rest of the planet combined. There's so many of them that even a homeless guy has a lawyer. I love everything about this story. I'm thinking of launching a GoFundMe campaign to raise money to buy a bridge for creepy porn lawyer to sleep under. That's how enthused I am by this story.
You know what? He may wind up under one anyway, even without your help. The great Mark Stein. I knew that you would see a bright side to that dark tale, and you did.
It is a dark tale, but we should all rejoice. Give money locally, Tucker. Save your community before you go and do it on social media.
You know, that is the takeaway. That is a deep and true point. Ask how your kids feel about you before you go anywhere else. Thank you, Mark. Great to see you.
Thanks, Tucker.
Time now for final exam. Question, always the same. Can you beat the experts at remembering what happened this week in the news? After the break, we'll be back. Buzz in gets to answer the question. Critically, you must wait until I finish asking the question in order to answer it. You can answer once I acknowledge you by saying your name. Each correct answer worth 1 point. If you get it wrong, we detract a point because we are cruel. Best of 5 wins.
Okay. I brought some stuff.
I just want to say for the record, and for the marketing department, I had no role in this at all.
No, I bought a bunch for Christmas. And if there's a close call.
It's unbelievable. Question 1. The great Marvel Comics illustrator and creator Stan Lee passed away this week. He was 95 years old. He was the brain behind characters like Iron Man, the Hulk, and someone called Insect Man. Thankfully, he reconsidered and changed the name of that character to what? Ed Henry.
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. You sure?
Yeah.
To the tape we go.
I said, gee, what if a guy could stick to walls like an insect? That sounds good. So I started trying to think of some names. Insect Man? Nah. Spider-Man. Ooh, that sounds dramatic.
There you go, Spider-Man. Very good. Okay. 1-0. Question 2. We thought it would never happen to our business. This was supposed to happen only to people who work in factories, but it's in fact happening. The first artificial intelligence news anchor is now on the air. A very human-looking AI newsman is reading headlines in which East Asian country? Robot news anchor where?
A little bit of China.
China. Is it China?
The Chinese state media showing off their newest news anchor. There's something different about him. He's not a person.
Hello, everyone. I'm an English artificial intelligence anchor. This is my very first day in Xinhua News Agency.
The robot news anchors are very obedient.
They're not as good as you.
They're not as good as me, but they stick to the script. There's no ad-libbing. All right. Good guess, by the way. Question 3. Multiple choice. This week, Disney World permanently banned a man from the park after he was photographed waving a Trump 2020 sign while on which one of their rides? Was it A, Pirates of the Caribbean, B, It's a Small World, C, Splash Mountain? Molly Hemingway.
I'm going to go with Splash Mountain.
You're going to go with Splash Mountain. To the tape.
A Trump supporter banned from Disney World for a second time. Dion Cheney shared this picture of himself riding down Splash Mountain while holding a Trump 2020 sign. The park doesn't allow what it considers unauthorized demonstrations.
Nice.
Very good.
Okay,
Did you get? I would have thought Pirates of the Caribbean. I don't know why.
I wasn't sure because they're all water-based.
But that
rides,
one seems the most subversive of all their rides, but that's just me. Didn't
seem like B.
It didn't seem like B. Question 4, another multiple choice. Democrats are now saying their fight against the president is not about politics or policy. It is a battle of good versus evil. One senator / fundamentalist minister said she is considering a 2020 run in order to restore what she calls moral decency in this country. Is it A, Kirsten Gillibrand of New York, B, Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, or C, Kamala Harris of California? Ed Henry.
Kirsten Gillibrand.
Kirsten Gillibrand is restoring moral, the friend of Harvey Weinstein, restoring moral decency. Can that be true? To the tape.
Are you staying in the Senate or are you going to run for president?
I believe that I've been called to fight as hard as I possibly can to restore that moral integrity, that moral decency.
That sounds like a yes.
So I'm thinking about it.
Did she preach in your church on Sunday? How'd you know that?
No, that was out there today.
Wow.
But is she actually a minister?
Well, she must be if she's fighting for moral decency.
Oh,
Obviously,
I was wondering about that.
That's my guess. I don't know. I guess we'll have to get to that. Okay, final question. At an Armistice Day event this weekend, the president was caught giving a stern look to a participant who dozed off during a speech. The sleeping man was the king of which country?
Oh, man.
It's not.
It was
a dozing king of a foreign country celebrating the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I.
Oh.
Which sleepy king?
Don't know. I honestly
don't know. It starts with a what? An M. The country he reigns over begins with an M.
There's no
not
upside for me to
Mauritania.
guess.
Do you want to give it a shot?
I mean, Monaco? I don't know.
Would you like to guess?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I learned my lesson not to
You
guess.
learned your lesson.
Right.
Okay, we're going to tell you on the tape.
During a somber event marking 100 years since the ceasefire that ended World War I, here's the Moroccan king dozing.
Morocco.
Best ever.
Morocco,
The president's
country
look.
famous for its hashish. The king has dozed off. Not surprising. Molly, you were wise not to guess.
No, I mean, this is congratulations.
That's right.
I'm really
Ed Henry,
happy
you
for
win.
Can you sign these books?
Of course I'm going to sign the books, and I'm also going to give you our commemorative Eric Wemple mug. For viewers who haven't seen this, this is Eric Wemple of the Washington Post website, who came on our program once. We hope he comes back, and this commemorates that moment.
I want that mug.
It's our
so
armistice.
much.
There you go. Ed Henry, Molly Hemingway, thank you both very much. That was great. That's it for this week's Final Exam. Pay attention very carefully to the news each week, dozing kings, Disney rides, whatever, and then come back next Thursday to see if you can beat our news experts. We'll be right back.